guilt is real. And that was the big thing I needed to step away from. And once I realized that the world kept spinning and the company didn't burn down, the fact that I wasn't there at a certain time in the morning, it was almost like a light bulb moment. And
are you ready for the raw, unapologetic realities of reclaiming your life? Me too. So turn into the Takeover Unfiltered podcast hosted by, yours truly, Brianna Rooney, Millionaire recruiter, and Taylor Bradley, the humble hustler. We're pulling back the curtain on our personal lives and sharing the ups, downs, and everything in between. From navigating relationships to juggling self-care routines, we are laying it all out on the table. You're welcome. We're all about taking control and making shit happen.
So expect raw, candid talk seasoned with some, of course, uncensored language. It's time to own your journey, embrace the chaos, and unleash your inner badass. So buckle up because we're about to take you on a wild ride to self-discovery and empowerment. But don't worry, we're still dishing on some valuable insights into the recruiting world. It's all about finding that balance between work and play, and we're here to show you how it's fucking done.
You ready to kick some ass and rewrite the rule book? Grab your favorite drink, cozy up, and join us for some real talk you are not going to want to miss.
Hey, welcome to Takeover Unfiltered. We have a special guest today, Haley O'Neill, which I'm super excited about. We connected because she was also on the list of top women in TA to watch in 2024. And we were jamming on what it really takes to be a mom and professional. And so super excited for you to be here. Taylor, good morning as well. What is going on, ladies?
Oh, just living the dream over here, being a mom, a wife, a professional, all the things we're going to talk about. I'm sure Haley does the same.
100%. All three all day long, and how to balance it. And super happy to be here. I am a mom of two. I have a 5-year-old daughter who is like going on 13 and an almost 8-year-old son. And out of Philadelphia, based out of Philadelphia. I've been in TA for over 10 years and love my career, love being a mom, and truly believe you can do both. So plus more, right?
And do it well.
Very excited to be here and talk more about it.
Nice. So what's exciting, especially for our listeners, just as a recap, because I know this is some of the first episodes out of TA technically, but we have a TA leader. So this is what kind of we're going for, is that we don't have to be focused just on TA, but as our network is TA. So naturally we have other just badass women and men that are going to come in from TA and beyond. And we're going to do episodes like this that just relate. And Haley and I were talking about basically mom brain versus work brain. And I'm like, oh my God, we got to talk about this. So thank you, Haley. So tell us a little bit more, about how you do that, because I really liked how you structure your day.
Yeah. A little backstory. I have always been one to multitask. But when I was 16 years old, I was cheering, I was going to school, I was working. And so building on my career and becoming a mom, I'm like, oh, I can do this, right? I can continue to multitask and have ping pong brain, right? And very quickly learned that's not feasible. That's unrealistic. So, took a step back and really looked big picture at what I need to do to show up as a better version of myself. And it was a really simple solution of really just making the space to start my day in the way that I wanted to. And so going from waking up, taking care of my kids, getting them ready for school, getting them dressed, making lunches, to then taking a beat, 30 minutes, whether it's walking, it's yoga, you name it, to be able to transition into work brain and then show up as my best professional self. And that's just one side of the day, right? It has to happen on the end of the day too. So with my husband being able to pick up the kids in the afternoon, that gave me the space to do the same thing in the afternoon. So that could be prepping for dinner, which is therapeutic for me. I love cooking. Or simply going out on the patio and just basking in the sun and just breathing before the stampede of children come in and I have to go as mom.
The cooking thing, I'm like, that feels like a whole other job to me. When you say, I love that that's therapeutic for you, but I think when the day starts to come to a close, I'm like, okay, then the whole other job starts of where I got to get them to this practice and that practice. And then I got to, cook up dinner and all of that. It's just the logistical part of my day. I guess it starts in the morning, then I have my work day, and then it's in the afternoon, it picks back up. And I feel like I'm just worn out till the time I close my eyes.
100%. I think where I have found helps me. And I love cooking when I don't have to think about it, if that makes sense. It's the planning. It's the grocery shopping. It's like putting the ingredients together. Once I have everything in front of me, like that's when it becomes a comfort zone of mine. But I'm with you. It is just a whole other full-time job after 5 o'clock.
Yeah. No, and that makes sense that you're saying like because the grocery shopping, like I was telling my kids how much I hate it. And they're like, why do you hate it? And I was like, because it's like the never ending task. You have to make the list. Then you have to go and get the groceries. And then you have to, at least I know at my Walmart, I have to check myself out and bag all the groceries, even if I've got like a cart full of shit. And then, you have to load it all up in the car, take it home, unload it, put it away. I was like, it is the longest, most never-ending task. But I guess the cooking itself, I never really thought about it like that. I don't dread the actual cooking part. It's all the stuff leading up to it. So you're absolutely right.
It's all the decision making too. So like I think of this like, so I actually love going to the grocery store because like that's actually that's therapeutic for me of like I just to get like I love to eat, but I also just get to go, oh, what do I want? Well, just strolling down the aisles. Now, assuming that I don't have to get somewhere super fast. But I feel like that with the laundry. I like just looked at the laundry today and I'm like, seriously? Like, it's like every goddamn day.
That's my therapeutic one. The laundry, I enjoy laundry, but it is every day. But I actually that's the one I don't mind.
Good. We'll switch. I'll cook for you.
Yeah. Like end up at each other.
Yeah. Sister wives. Sister wife.
Oh, my God. He is the death of me right now with a potty training 3-year-old. So I will have yeah.
No, thank you. So how do you feel accomplished with both? Is that what those like 30 minutes before and after is? Because I think that's a whole other thing. It's like, we've got mom guilt. We've got like failures happening over here. We're really hard on ourselves. I think that's like, every woman, maybe even parent can agree, but I feel like it's more of a mom thing, but I don't know. How do you deal with that? Like, is that your reflection?
Yeah, the guilt is real. And that was the big thing I needed to step away from. And once I realized that the world kept spinning and the company didn't burn down, and the fact that I wasn't there at a certain time in the morning, it was almost like a light bulb moment. And then the habit itself just created a better version of myself. And I started to see that reflected in how I showed up for my kids. So instead of answering an email on my phone at like 5:30, I'm watching my son as he tells me to, hey, mom, watch this for the 17th time, in the hour. But I'm focused on them and I'm present there. So I show up differently. I show up more in the present and in the moment instead of having that ongoing task of both. I feel like I would wake up in the morning and I had 2 running lists instantly. And one was like the mom list and the family list. And the other was like, okay, what do I need to do? What do I have to do at work today? What projects am I doing? What kind of interviews do I have set up? And again, the ping ponging back and forth, I was exhausted before I even sat down at my desk.
Yeah.
And so again, being able to have that moment and that time and that space in the morning for my kids and my family, and then taking the time for myself, and then showing up as a better teammate and a better leader, a better peer, it made more sense the more that I did it. And it just kind of snowballed and felt better and better as time went on.
Can we talk about like work hours and how that relates to your schedule and like what you just outlined? And I'll give you some context here. I was in a role, my last role, and I had to like be at my desk, like sitting here by no later than 9. And it was one of those jobs that I had to sit at my desk all day. There was no going and getting lunch. There was no taking a walk, nothing like that. And so I found it really challenging to get my kids to school at 7:30. You wake up and you do everything, you breakfast, prepping, everything that you got to do, right? Get them to school at 7:30, get back home, get a good workout in, get a shower, make myself presentable, and be sitting at my desk by 9. And I never had that like moment where I'm like, I never appreciated it more than when I worked for Brianna and she was Pacific time. So she would start like 8 a.m. her time is 10 a.m. my time. Like 10 a.m. is really the sweet spot for me of when I need to start a schedule because it's something, I'm always sacrificing something if I don't. And it was typically my workout, which is what makes me the best version of myself, best mom, best employee, best wife, whatever it is. I have to be able to like move my body in the morning. And I found myself feeling like if I have to sacrifice something, I can't not take the kids to school. I can't not do breakfast. I've got to sacrifice the workout. And it's, we're not like men where we could just take a quick shower. It doesn't happen that quickly for us, where we could just take this quick shower. We're good to go. I always see my husband and he could like do something and shower within like 2 minutes and be sitting in front of the desk. I'm like, that's such bullshit. you know? I have to dry my hair. I have to put some makeup on. It's a nightmare, you know? So I feel like that's another thing where I would just go into the day, like, I would wake up in the morning, like, how am I going to fit this all in today? How am I going to do this? And then I would go straight from work to like taking kids to practices, to picking them up, cooking dinner. And it just feels like everything felt like a chore. Like you said, I'm already behind. I've got 2 lists going by the time I wake up in the morning. But I feel like flexible work hours for me now are just key. I don't want to ever have to get to a point where I sacrifice that again, like sacrifice my workout or my me time. That's my me time. That's the only me time I feel like I get all day. So I could never sacrifice that again for a job.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate in that I do have a very flexible work schedule. I think that does make a difference. I do work remote, which is another wonderful perk. I think about if I were to be traveling in office or in person to an office, that commute would kind of be my time, right? And so why don't I give that to myself working remote? So, sitting in the car or sitting in traffic might not sound like the greatest time, but if I have my favorite podcast on, if I have my favorite Spotify playlist on, if I'm talking to my best friend and catching up with her, like, again, those are kind of those therapeutic moments that allow me to transition from one person to another, if you will, mom to professional. So I guess, again, where I was coming from was, why don't I give that to myself here? Even when I drop the kids off at daycare, it's 4 minutes down the road and we're listening to either Blippi, Danny Go, or my daughter's obsessed with Taylor Swift right now. So
I do.
Yeah. So, it's not me time. It is still kid time.
Yeah.
And so again, that space coming back home is so important for me. I don't know what the answer is, quite frankly, with, those that do have to be sitting down at a desk at a specific time and are, being accounted for. I've had a similar role in the past, and I can tell you that I wasn't the healthiest version of myself. Because to your point, Taylor, like it was just bam, 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 bam. It was one thing after another, and I did not have a moment to breathe. So yeah, really curious to see how, if you have had success in it, if others have had success in it. I am not one person to get up at 5:30 in the morning and like have time for me. Like, no, like I like my sleep, like give me as much sleep as possible. So this is how I have found it work from my personal experience.
Brianna, when you at 5 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
at 4. Oh, is that? She's one of those.
I wake up at 4:50 and I have a 5:15 in the morning workout. But that's because I am not an afternoon person. So anyone that gets on my calendar, coaching wise, like don't pick the 3 o'clock, because I'm telling you, I am not the best version of me. Like I definitely shut down, but morning I could rock that stuff really early. But the question to you is did you talk to your work about this and was like, hey, this is me, this is mom time, this is me time, and I can start here, and this is what works for me, and you're gonna appreciate the best version of me. Were you transparent there, or did it just work out that it's flexible?
It just kind of worked out that it's flexible. What I do use is my calendar. So I block off the time on my calendar. So from, whether it's 8:30 to 9 to 9:30, like that is a repetitive task on my calendar that, people they can't reach me then. That is my time. And so I do that in the morning and in the afternoon, and you'll see it on my calendar. And even my leader, he always is celebrating the way that I use my calendar and the way that I organize myself. It was one of the best things I've ever learned in my career. And it sounds so silly, but your calendar can be gold. And so I use it. I use that to my advantage. And my team knows that I'm not presently at my desk during those times.
What do you call it on your calendar?
It's just like me time.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Like, yeah. And again, I'm very fortunate to where I work for a company who, wellness is intertwined into everything that we do. So it's encouraged to be able to take time like that for yourself. But in the past, again, I have worked for companies that don't quite encourage it as much. And I just block it and I keep myself busy. I mean, it's my personal calendar. They don't need to know where I'm at every single moment of the day. And so, and here's what I think about it. If I'm taking the time and space for me, you're going to get, again, a better employee. You're going to get a better team leader. I'm going to show up more put together. I'm going to be more in the moment in meetings. I'm not going to be thinking about other things on my mind, having to do with the kids. like you get the best version of me in those, 8 hours of the day.
That's incredible. Like I'm any employer that respects that after the situations that I have been in. And I actually, just fun fact for you, Haley, and for our listeners, I was fired from a job, my first and only job to ever be fired from, I had some time blocked for an approved PTO to chaperone my 6-year-old's field trip. I got a call the morning of the field trip saying I needed to urgently go work on this project. It was due, it wasn't like a project I knew about, but it was something that came up that morning. They needed done in a few hours. And I was like, well, sorry, I have my son's field trip. And I got the call at 7 a.m., by the way. Took the call, which wasn't uncommon for me to get those kinds of calls in that hour. So I took the call, and they told me what the deal was. And I told them, hey, remember, I have that field trip. It's approved. Everybody's gone. The calendar invite, like I did all the things, right? And they basically told me pick one. And so by the time I got out of the field trip at noon, they had cut my access. So I found that, and yeah, it was a crazy, crazy time, but it was like a crazy whirlwind of a sprint of a job where I've worked more hours than I think I've worked, in probably a year in that one role. But I was always struggling with the guilt of like, I'm not doing what I should be doing for my family, or I'm leaving something on the guilt of I'm leaving something on the table for work. Like I have all these things building up that I need to do. And so I felt like I was never really mentally present in anything. And I was always thinking about something else, the next thing I needed to do. But that was kind of like the one choice that was put in front of me where, if it had been a doctor's appointment or something like that, I probably would have been like, okay, and then cancel my doctor's appointment. Even though, most of the time you have to book those out for months and still plan all this. Yeah. So done this fire drill, done what I had to do. But then you put it me in a situation where I have to pick between my kids and something. Well, that's a no-brainer, But I definitely think there's a higher being that was looking out for me to get me away from a toxic situation where that just wasn't, because I wasn't the best version of myself for my family. I was always stressed. I was always highly emotional, and I was always feeling guilty. And that was the part that was making me the worst version of myself, was like, no, I can't help with this. I can't take you to do this. I can't go to that. Like I was just missing out on a lot of things with my kids because of work. And it was not even like, it was after hours stuff too. This wasn't a place that respected, work hours. So you get calls early in the morning, you get calls at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, and you were expected to answer them. And so I just wasn't the best version of myself. And I was like, okay, this is a learning moment. I will never, no matter how much money I'm making or what the situation is, I will never do that again. But the guilt was the part that drove me, the mom guilt of like, I'm failing my kids by, ordering food and not having, like I promised them I'd cook them their favorite meal, and I'm not able to do that because I just like don't have it in me by the time that hour of the day rolls around. It was just like little stuff like that just kept piling up for me, where I was like, I know that ultimately I feel horrible as a human being if I don't feel like I'm doing the best that I can at being a mom, Like even though I was doing the best that I could to just like survive, I wasn't prioritizing that role, over everything else. I was looking at it like, well, I need to make money to support my family, and that's how I'm being the best mom I can be. But then the guilt side of it, it's just kind of a ping pong, like you said earlier, like a ping pong in your head of what am I supposed to be doing? Oh, I feel guilty. Whatever decision I make, I feel guilty about it, And I was just back and forth in that headspace for a while. And it wasn't, Brianna saw me through that time. Like we were obviously, it just got your time.
You're giving me all like the bad chills over here. Like,
yeah.
Redoing it because we have so our listeners haven't totally heard this from you because we were going back and forth like, hey, how much do we want to like talk about this? Because of other reasons. But I mean, people should know, like, you hopefully do have a choice. But like to Haley's point earlier, it's like, unfortunately, not all women's or all people have choices.
Yeah.
And that's what's hard. It's hard to be like, wait, I don't have that time. I don't have the flexibility. Like, how can I switch on and off? And then, I mean, there's so much data that shows how long it actually takes for us to switch task to task. So think about how heavy it would be for mom to work. Like that's its own, I think, separate thing. So it's like supposed to take like 15 to 30 minutes to fully be present to the next one. So I think it's spot on how Haley, that you're like, I do 30 minutes. So it's like, I guess what I would love to brainstorm as individuals here is like, how do we still give advice to people that don't have that luxury? That's difficult.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could wake up early in the morning, but for me, I'm a morning person like you, Brianna. I like to work out in the morning. So if I woke up earlier than when my kids go to school, it's dark outside and I like to go for a run or a walk. I walk and run a couple miles every single day. And I'm also like really paranoid. I've watched way too much true crime. So I'm like, somebody's going to murder me. Or, I'm like paranoid about that. And so I don't want to be going in these, and we have woods in the back of our neighborhood. Like, I don't want to be walking back there doing the same, trail that I go on early morning. So I was conflicted of like, how do I do what I need to do for myself and be sitting at this desk by, 9 a.m. And I didn't have another choice, because I think people often go to the choice of like, wake up earlier or do it after work. And it's like, well, there isn't an after work. If you get done at 5:36 and have to go straight to jujitsu and straight to, like, there's not an after work. So what's the solution,
Yeah. Haley, what's the solution?
Yeah.
You're the expert in that.
I gotta say, it's when you think about it from like a company standpoint and you think about benefits that companies offer, and there's, the conversation of remote work and how beneficial it is, and in person and hybrid. But I think the gold nugget here is flexibility. And if it's something that like companies can build into their benefit plan and live by and encourage and build that trust with their employees, you'll get better and teammates showing up. I sound like a broken record at this point, but the better versions of your teammates will continue to show up with that flexibility when it comes to, those moments of having to be at your desk at a certain time or until a certain time, and there isn't that flexibility. Then maybe that's when a conversation gets drummed up with your leader, if you have that relationship and that rapport with them, and say like, listen, this is what I need to be successful in this role and show up the way you want me to show up, and have that candid conversation if they feel comfortable to do so.
Yeah. I think that's so important. It goes back to like the transparency, and also like I can't help but think as a recruiter to go back to the data. Again, there's tons of articles on this, right? I think I wonder if it's California. I'm in California, so I should know this, but there is a governor trying to pass a 4-day work week, and because there's again so much data that like our brains are not at our A game for that long. It's like 4 to 6 hours, like at the most. So it's like, let's just be realistic on what we can get done. I think the sad part is there's a lot of people that take advantage. So it's like we're over here, working our asses off and whatnot. But yeah, it's going to is like, look, I need this for me. And I almost wonder, I'm curious on what you two think, is like, would you take a 5 to 15K pay cut for flexibility?
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think so too. So it's like, I'm wondering like how we start like negotiating that, and I know it's a whole other subject because technically women aren't great or comfortable negotiating, but it's one of those things. It's just practice and role play and whatever, but it's just being very, very real. I think we're all scared, especially in this the work situation environments, that it's like, look, there's not a ton of jobs to go around. So, how do we, and specifically in the TA space, but I know like there's so many, Taylor and I were just talking about this earlier, managers and up, you can see there's they're kind of getting rid of those levels, not getting rid of, but they're being, they prioritize the IC level. So anyways, kind of a tangent there, but.
Yeah. Well, and then but I guess on the flip side of that, what I would push back with is like, if you're willing to take a 15K pay cut for the flexibility, but somebody, maybe a man, to use your example, Brianna, isn't, because they're not the one having to do the bulk of those, the getting the kids to school and all the stuff that we're talking about, right? You're still going to have to work with people, just like a 4-day work week. If not everybody's doing it, then you're still going to have to end up working. So if not everybody decided to take the 15K pay cut for flexibility, you're still going to have people reaching out to you that, you have to work with or collaborate with, who may not respect those flexible hours that, you like give it up and you get forced into a situation. So that's more so I could see happening, Brianna, versus like being scared to have a conversation is you've agreed to take a 15K pay cut for the flexibility, but then you don't actually end up getting that flexibility because other people agreed not to or said they didn't want to. And then you're pulled into like, okay, well, they can't finish their part, so you do yours, with the project or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. That's the issue that I could see with like even a 4-day work week. If not everybody's doing it, then I don't think it's going to be followed.
Yeah. Well, it's about boundaries. And this honestly might be another podcast, but it's like this year I have decided to say no more often, where I think like a lot of people are like, I've decided to say yes more often. I'm like, no, I've actually decided to say no more often because I was like, you get all overwhelmed and like, I like to do lots of things. And so now I'm just like, no, I'm pushing myself too hard. And I know we're coming up at time, but Haley, I really want to touch on also significant other brain, wife brain, whatever we want to call that, because that's actually a whole other job too, right? Like, and we might love to do it, and we love to do maybe all of these jobs, but it's still a transition. How do you do that?
Yeah, and that took work. It took therapy. It took communication with my husband. And because reality is that he and I are not the same people that we were 12 years ago when we met. You know, marriage changes you, kids change you, life changes you. And so for me, I was sitting over here like, hey, man, I'm working my ass off. I'm taking care of all of the kids' stuff. Doctor's appointments, dance classes, daycare. I mean, you name it. And he's over here like, what about me? Hey, you know, and in the best way possible. He just wants to be loved too. Like he's my golden retriever, right? That's the trend right now. He's my golden retriever husband. He's like, I want to be loved too. And it's not that I didn't love him. I was just almost like acts of service love, right? Where he wanted the touchy-feely empathy love. And we were not seeing eye to eye. And so one of the biggest things that helped me, one, I think therapy is magic. I think it is just does wonders, but was realizing that I wasn't alone and that there are other women out there and other partners out there that are experiencing the same thing. And it truly takes communication. So, you know, going back to the many brains that we have, at the end of the night, that's for my husband and I. That is whether we're playing a game, we're watching a movie, we're doing like a impromptu date night within the house. Like the kids are in bed, like they're fine and they're safe. Our phones are away. We're not checking emails, and we create the space for us.
I love golden retriever husband. I'm just so using that. I am not married at this time, but you have? Oh my God, I've never had that. Like, that's so relatable to me. That's so funny. I love that. So, okay. So then now your husband knows that, like, look, you're at the end of my day. Like, I will get to you, but you're just at the end of my day. So is that how you put it?
Yeah, you know, I think in the broad sense, I was also sharing with him that, like, I need the help, right? I have a really hard time asking for help. And so if he's there picking up the slack and, you know, he's doing afternoon pickup, he's doing one of the grocery store visits once a week, he is doing laundry alongside with me, it gives me more space for him. Like, my brain is less crowded and noisy. I'm not exhausted anymore, so that when we do have the time together, it's good time together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'll just use men because here we are women. A lot of men do have a hard time being like, look, like, you were number one for a while, right? But then you have kids and you have work, and it's like, and I just think it's more of an interchangeable thing. Like, look, I'm not trying to make you third. I'm just being like, it just has to switch throughout the day and throughout the weeks. And we have to just kind of come to like that unconditional point where it's like, I got you. It's just 1 second, 2 minutes, 20, you know, and it does get hard. So Haley, I love how you've been talking about therapy and how you guys are like, you're obviously having a very psychological safety conversation on the regular. And so you don't then freak out and crumble, because I think that's what happens. We all are like, you know, just kind of shut up and like grin and bear it. And like, maybe we'll just sweep it under the rug. You know, I also have a very hard time asking for help. So that even the word help, I'm like, oh, it's assistance. Like, I totally crumble when it comes to that. I have to constantly remind myself, like, if someone asked me for help, I would do it in 2 seconds. What is my problem?
Yeah.
You know, so I love that you said that. Like, look, you can help me, or you can wait until 9:00 tonight and I'll talk to you. You know, those are your choices.
Okay, so we actually are at time, Brianna. I know.
Fine, I'm button up. I won't say.
So Haley, do you have a broke to boss tip for our listeners?
Yeah. And I'm sure you've heard me say it several times throughout this. All right, let's do it now. But you know, the short and sweet of it is create the space. Like, make the time for you. Use your calendar. Again, calendar is an awesome tool in your toolbox to utilize, and it's simple. So simply seeing it on your calendar and having that reminder of like, oh, I shouldn't be sitting at my desk. I should be like outside, or I should be doing yoga or reading a book or what have you. And throw away the guilt. I mean, it is an energy sucker. You know, the world is going to keep going. The company is going to be just fine without it for 30 minutes. And again, you're just going to show up a happier, less stressful version of yourself.
Oh, I love that. So yeah, exactly. We'll just drop the mic. We're good. I'm not even going to talk. This was super great. For everyone that's listening, I mean, I'm sure you can relate to this. We love, the comments. And if you have any other advice that helps you become more present in everything you do, we would love to hear it, because I feel very strongly, and I think the other two wonderful women here feel the same. You can be great at both. You can rock both. You can rock all three. You can rock whatever you want. It's just a choice, and it's a celebration of you. Love it.
Cool. This was
all right. See you next week.
Thanks,
Hey,
y'all.
hey, before you jump off, if you have enjoyed today's episode, we would love it if you could take a moment to rate us on your favorite podcast platform, because your ratings help other awesome listeners like you find us. It's quick, it's easy, and it really means the world to us. We have links to Apple Podcasts in the description. Just open it up on your phone and scroll down to the bottom and leave an awesome review.